draft. But Dalton, we got to get to our current bracket.
The fun part.
The current bracket going into week 12 of college football. So obviously we'll find out exactly what the playoff committee thinks on Tuesday night during our review show probably. But this is what we would do as of right now for our current bracket. So start off with the top 4 seeds in the college football playoff currently. Number 1 is Oregon. Number 2 is BYU. Number 3 is Texas. Number 4 is Miami. I want to remind people, this is not the exact top 4 of what the PFF top 25 will look like. You can find that, of course, tomorrow morning at pff.com. But the 4 highest ranked conference champions would be the top 4 seeds. That's why they're the top 4. And before we move on, Dawn, a lot of people are seeing probably 2 and 3 and going, what on earth are you talking about? I want you to look at BYU's schedule. I want you to look at Texas' schedule, and you tell me what's the better resume. BYU beat SMU, who's a top 15 team in the country and very close to being in the playoff right now. They beat Kansas State, who's also going to be close to being a top 15 team in the country and very close to the playoff. Who has Texas beaten this year? They beat Michigan, who's going to go 6-6 this year at best. They beat Oklahoma, who's going to go 5-7 probably this year. That's it. I don't understand.
And they beat the best team they beat was Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt by 3.
Yeah.
By 3. I look at that schedule. You look at BYU's schedule, and you look at, and also the fact Texas lost a game. BYU has not lost a game yet. That's another thing as well. So that, to me, it will not happen that way. I can guarantee you Texas will be above BYU in the ranking. But you look at the resume right now, I don't think it's an argument. BYU is over Texas.
All right, I'll do the rant now.
Go.
I have already seen multiple opinions floating around of people saying, oh, after last night, close win. Okay, cool. That BYU wouldn't be in their top 10.
I saw that too, dude.
Let me tell you something. First of all, the resume thing, like you mentioned, I think they have to be in the top 6 at least.
Yeah.
Have to. And I think it's perfect because in your rankings you have
3.
You have Ohio State 2, right?
Yeah.
And you have BYU 3.
Yeah.
I have no issue with that.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something. I am so sick and tired of teams getting penalized for close wins, but it's also only when people feel like penalizing teams for close wins. We even saw the committee do this last year.
Yeah.
Okay, so they played a close game with Oklahoma State and won.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Last night, hated rival. Utah's playing their Super Bowl this year because they're not going anywhere else, right? Hated rival, one of the biggest rivalries on the road, wicked loud environment, tough game, battled through. Yeah, I got one call. Won the ball game.
Yep.
Still made plays to win the ball game, okay? I'm so sick of hearing about teams with close wins.
Yeah.
Some get penalized and some don't. Because when it's Georgia beating Kentucky by 1, I don't hear about that, right? When it's Miami winning second half comeback after second half comeback barely, week after week, I don't hear about that. When it was last year and Alabama beats Auburn, who I think went 6-6 on essentially a Hail Mary, I didn't hear about any of that when we were arguing Florida State versus Bama, right? Why is it, and I kind of know why, but why is it that we pick and choose? First of all, the close game thing kills me. If this week you get on Indiana or BYU for winning a close game, get off it.
Yeah.
Because close games are a part of football. Okay? No, look, does anybody? I know the NFL's different because they have polls and rankings and all that, but Chiefs win close games every week.
Yeah.
What are they? They're the best team in football. That's fine. I'm so sick of it because we
punishing for wins.
We pick and choose when to penalize teams for winning close. Unless it's something like you're playing Kent State or somebody like that and you beat them by 3.
And we love the Golden Flash.
And we do. But like it has to be something, or an FCS. If Alabama goes and beats Mercer by 4 this coming week, then I'm going to be like, okay, that's concerning.
Yeah.
But when I got a rivalry game on the road, Alabama did the same thing last year against Auburn. Nobody batted an eye.
Yep.
So I'm tired of that. And I'm tired of sometimes these rankings are subjective and sometimes they're not. Like the Miami thing last week when the committee got asked why Miami was ahead of BYU and they said offensive prowess. And I go, okay, that's great.
Yeah.
But it takes a full football team. When they didn't have all the offensive prowess this week and they can't win games with their defense or whatever else, run game, however, then it's, now we know Miami's not a complete team. No, you knew it the whole time.
Yeah.
And if last year you were ranking things based on offensive prowess, Well, no matter what, LSU would have been the number one team in the country.
Yeah.
So I'm tired of this subjective using whatever criteria we feel like every week, and I'm really tired of teams getting penalized for close wins. I have no issue with you having BYU at 3 based on – it has to be – you mentioned this weeks ago. Eventually it has to be based on what you've done.
Yeah.
They went into their biggest rival's home stadium, battled through a really good defense and a whole lot of adversity all night, and they came out with a win in the middle of November. I don't even care what the margin was. I don't care that they won by 1. I don't care about the penalty because Utah had 3 different chances to put the game away. That's well-deserved, BYU being in your 3rd spot there. That's the number one thing I'm so sick of. Well, they barely beat them. Nobody says that about Oregon, Ohio State.
Yeah, they don't. No, they don't.
They don't say that.
No.
What if Will Howard slides 2 seconds earlier?
Yeah.
They don't say this with anybody until they feel like, well, let's knock this team down for the fun of it.
There's an agenda with some of these schools. There really is.
If BYU,
it's sad.
It was already wrong that they were number 9.
Yeah.
That was already wrong.
Criminal.
And if they stay there or they're any worse because they won a close game against their biggest rival, something's wrong.
Dalton, 2 of the teams BYU beat are still alive for the college football playoff.
Yeah.
That's the 2 teams BYU beat in SMU. Who was the other one? I'm blanking.
K-State.
K-State, yeah. They also, by the way, you want to talk about close wins? They beat Kansas State by 30. Beat them by 30.
I could take every single team up here and point out a close win. Iowa State barely beat UCF. Colorado's had some close ones, right?
Yeah.
Georgia beat Kentucky by 1, right? Ole Miss has been struggling on offense. I mean, Miami with all the comebacks. You can't pick and choose when to penalize teams for a close win. Either do it to everybody or don't do it at all. Don't do it to some of them.
I love the close win thing. They beat Kansas State by 30. They beat them by 29. That's not a close win. They blew out a top 15 team in the country by 29. I don't know what we're talking about BYU. So yeah, I'm glad you're on my side here because I put them above Texas. I know it's gonna be a hot take, but look at the schedule. I mean, listen, their 2 wins are better than anything Texas has done all year. Anything. All year. So, all right, let's go into the matchups. Now we'll get off the soapbox here. Let's go to the matchups for the first round of the college football playoff as what it would be right now. Number 5, Ohio State, continuing to be number 5. They're actually number 2 in my overall ranking, but number 5 against number 12, Boise State. Number 6, Penn State against number 11, Notre Dame. Number 7, Indiana against number 10, Ole Miss. And then Tennessee and Alabama in a rematch in the 8-9 matchup. Anything that stands out to you on the first round there? Well, I know you're going to get into it.
There's a couple. I mean, Penn State, Notre Dame. Here's the only thing I'll say. The only argument I have with you here is I could argue a flip flop. I could put Indiana ahead of Penn State.
I totally get that.
I know Penn State lost to Ohio State. That's one thing, but I also think Indiana's been more consistently dominant than Penn State has.
Yeah.
Also, selfishly, an Indiana Notre Dame matchup for the state of Indiana
that would rule. I didn't think about that.
You should have flipped them just for that. Indiana versus Notre Dame in a playoff game, no matter which location.
That would have been awesome. I screwed that
up. The biggest game in the history of the state of Indiana. But no, I think in Tennessee, Bama rematch down there at the bottom is a lot of fun. No, I think the questions now for me are you have Georgia as your first team out? Is that what we're doing here?
Yeah. Can we go into the? I think we have a graphic too. The first 4 out just show the schools that just missed out on making it. Georgia, Texas A&M, SMU, and Kansas State.
It shows right here. I think a lack of clarity in week to week. What we have in the SEC. It's you want chaos. The SEC is absolute shambles when it comes to chaos. I mean, it's incredible. What is it? Everybody except for Texas and Tennessee has 2 losses at least. We think LSU just got knocked out. A&M's sitting there with a huge game against Texas the last week of the regular season coming. Georgia's playing Tennessee next week.
Yep.
I mean, that could be who knows what that could bring. After what we just saw yesterday from Georgia, the lack of clarity in the SEC more than any other conference is insane right now. And then SMU's floating there in a weird situation because they're going to be rooting for some other teams to lose, but you know what, too? I think they got to be feeling pretty good. Take care of business.
Oh, yeah.
Now that we know Miami, we knew it before, but they didn't lose any games yet. Now that we know Miami's vulnerable, SMU's got to be feeling like, maybe the ACC title, maybe not. I'm curious to see what happens with SMU if they do get to 11-2.
I don't think they're getting. I don't think it's good enough.
I think there's a lot of other circumstances. When you think about
that's fair,
if there are only 2 losses, though, are to BYU and Miami.
Yeah,
I mean, and those 2 teams end up, let's say, as 2 of the top 8.
I'm just worried about their wins, and then you start comparing those, and I think they'll come up short to other 2-loss SEC, a lot of other 2-loss SEC teams.
I think
all of them,
I think
probably.
SMU. I think it's a very much closer situation than we think. Beating Pitt the way they did might help them.
Pitt, they beat Louisville, which is helpful.
They have dominated some other teams. They beat Louisville, who's ranked. That's a huge win at Louisville. The better Louisville looks every week. SMU, I think, is a wicked, intriguing situation there.
I think, and I love SMU. I personally think they're not getting in if they lose a game, whether it be in the regular season. If they win, they settle. Obviously, they're in no matter what.
But I think if they lose if it's Miami, I don't know how the tiebreakers work now with them and Clemson, but if they lose to Miami in the ACC title game, they've got a fascinating case.
Yeah,
that's because they're 2 losses. The other loss being BYU by a field goal.
I could.
That's tough. I think SMU's got to.
They'll probably go into conference title weekend in the playoff, but not like as the 11 or 10 seed maybe. And then if they lose, I think they get bumped out.
It's tough.
It's tough. It's
gonna.
Really
I think
tough.
It's going to be tough. Yeah.
It's going to be fascinating. But yeah, that's what we got for our current college football playoff rankings. Hey, thanks for watching another episode of the PFF College Football Show. Please make sure you guys subscribe to the channel.
Also, subscribe to PFF Plus at subscribe.pff.com for all of the same data and grades that we use in our show, plus fantasy tools, betting tools, and our mock draft simulator.